The meeting of Brant County Council for May the 13th, 2025. Yeah, that's going to stop dinging, right? Attendance has been taken, noting that Councillor Garneau is not here tonight and Councillor Howes is up on the screen and the rest of us are in council chamber. The second thing on our agenda is our land acknowledgement, and Councillor Kyle is going to do that for us.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As we gather, we acknowledge that we meet on the lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Six Nations of the Grand River, and the traditional territory of the Attawandarong. We remind ourselves that the County of Brant is situated on lands that are full of rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. We recognize the significance of their contributions to the past, present, and future of this land. As a county, we have a shared responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we live and work, and a commitment to the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. We commit to continue learning, reflecting on our past, and working in allyship.
Thank you. The third thing on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to add to the agenda? Noting that there's, Councillor Chambers?
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to add anything, but I want to make a comment with regard to the item 14.1 being approved for being waived by the procedural bylaw.
Okay.
And I hope this isn't taken the wrong way. It's not meant to be taken anyway, but how it is. We received an email from the clerk. I got it yesterday, as a matter of fact, which outlined that according to our remuneration bylaw, that if the resolution that Councillor Oakley is proposing is successful, and he's successful in his endeavor, that he would stand to have an increase in his honorarium by a certain amount, as well as part of the resolution indicates that he is requesting that expenses be taken care of by the county. And this is clearly a financial benefit to Councillor Oakley. And the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act is quite clear in that when a municipal councillor, for example, is perhaps going to achieve a financial gain, they must, by duty and obligation, declare a conflict of interest. And to do that, if Councillor Oakley is proposing a motion without declaring a conflict of interest, he would be in contravention of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. And you can't move a motion and then declare a pecuniary interest because you've already moved the motion. You have to do it before. And there's another issue in that, according to our own code of conduct, there's language in there that says we as councillors must uphold the spirit and letter of any provincial legislation, which is the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. So if the mover or the seconder, knowing that the motion is moved by Councillor Oakley and seconded, the seconder, knowing that Councillor Oakley is in a conflict of interest situation, is subject to contravention of our code of conduct. And if it proceeds to a vote, and we vote, the people voting would also be in contravention to our code of conduct in that we are supposed to uphold the letter and intent of provincial legislation. All that being said, what I would like to do is have this resolution not brought tonight to give Councillor Oakley the opportunity to follow the correct procedure, which may or may not be correct, but it is in my opinion. So I would have difficulty in voting on this resolution knowing that I would be in violation of our code of conduct. I leave it in your hands.
Well, thanks for that, Councillor Chambers, leaving it in my hand. I would imagine it's going to be hard to get a seconder for that now. And I would think that there'll be a lot of people abstain. Councillor Oakley, do you want to speak to it?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be interested to hear, Councillor Chambers, how you would suggest this would come forward. Otherwise, then that would be appropriate. I mean, certainly, you know, this resolution is different from Councillor Miller's at the beginning of her term in regards that the requirements of the FCM resolution to run does require the municipality to agree to take on expenses, which when we actually get to the resolution, will address. But in regards to the remuneration aspect, that would have applied as well to Councillor Miller when he moved his resolution, which we all voted for at that time and voted to allow Councillor Miller to run for that position. Whether or not our own bylaw procedural, that aspect of a remuneration bylaw is in violation of the municipal code of conduct in that regard, that would need to be dealt with separately from my resolution here. Certainly, if we want to have the conversation at some point to remove the extra $1,800 of remuneration for being on an external committee, I really am not bothered by that. Not doing this to get an extra $1,800. Frankly, wasn't even aware that was part of our own bylaw until the clerks pointed it out. So not why I'm interested in doing this. So if we want to modify our own remuneration bylaw at some point to remove that aspect, happy to do so. But I really don't see how this would be in violation of our code of conduct, given that we've already done this at this council. It's precedented, and this was never brought up at any point by the clerk's department. And I would defer to their expertise in this regard.
Okay. I think with that being said, we'll wait till it comes up on the agenda and we'll address it then and we'll get staff involved. Please note that there is a addendum to our agenda, which is 10.2.1. And if there's nothing else to be added to the agenda, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the agenda with the amendment, please. Councillor Pierce, looking for a seconder. Councillor Bell. All those in favor of the agenda, the way it stands amended? And the other thing we have to decide after we've raised our hands is whether we're going to have all recorded votes tonight, and I just want to make sure that everyone's okay with just raising our hands. We don't have to stand up. We can just raise our hands. So that's okay? I have to take a vote on that too. All those in favor of just raising our hands for recorded votes all night tonight? All those in favor, don't stand up, Councillor Pierce. Yeah. Councillor Chambers, you're okay with that?
I'm confused as to, did 14.1, was approved to be brought up then?
It's going to be brought up when it comes up, yes, and we'll refer to staff as to any clarification, or we can have it dismissed when it comes up.
And then I voted against that.
Do you want to just note that section 4E needs to be suspended to allow those two items?
Yeah. So we need to suspend 14.1.1.
4E, sorry.
Oh, we have to suspend 4.E so that we can do our voting by hands and not standing up
That's to allow those, as we're not planning matters.
for planning matters. Okay. All those in favor? I know it's confusing, but we have a lot going on for the voting. Okay, let's try to move on past our agenda. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Does anyone have any? If you see any, please let me be the first one to know. Delegations, petitions, and presentations. We don't have any. 6.1, which is the minutes of the meeting of April the 8th. Councillor Oakley, that's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pierce that the minutes from the County Brant Council meeting of April 8th, 2025 be approved.
Are there any questions to the minutes of April the 8th, 2025? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed and carried. Number 7 on the agenda is business arising from the minutes. Does anyone have any business arising from the minutes of April the 8th, 2025? Seeing none, we'll go on to number 8, which is consent items, and we don't have any. And then 8.2 to be received, we don't have any. Which brings us to number 9.1, which is a public hearing under the Planning Act to receive information from the public. So because these are public meetings, I'll call the public meeting open now. And the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to have a presentation from our planner, Logan. This is regarding 230 Oakland Road.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Bailey. Thank you for your time. I'll be presenting the temporary use zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 425 LK, located at 23 Oakland Road on behalf of the owners, Sherry and Daryl Graham. The subject lands have a total area of 0.45 hectares and 1.1 acres with 56.5 meters of frontage along Oakland Road. Currently, the lands contain one mobile refreshment cart as a result of a previous temporary zoning application and a separate commercial use on site. Surrounding area consists of single detached residential lots to the north, south, and east, open space zones to the north and east, natural heritage zoning to the west, and commercial uses on the subject land. The subject lands are designated natural heritage system and village developed area within the County of Brant Official Plan 2023 and zone special exception automotive commercial C6-3 within the County of Brant zoning bylaw. The application proposes a temporary use zoning bylaw to permit a mobile refreshment cart on a portion of the lands for a period of 3 years. In support of this application, the following documents were received: the application form, cover letter, site plan, and the previously approved temporary use zoning bylaw. The temporary zoning application ZBA 1221 RC was previously approved on a portion of the lands for a mobile refreshment cart as well. Due to the temporary zoning lapsing after a period of 3 years, this has been considered a new temporary zoning bylaw application and not an extension. However, the function and operational use of the site will continue as it presently sits. To date, no comments have been received as part of the public circulation, and in 2 weeks' time, this will be going for recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions to the planner? Councillor Miller, you're first.
Two questions, Mr. Mayor, three to Logan. Logan, you say because the previous 3 year lapsed, it's considered a brand new application, but the fact of the matter is they did have a 3 year temporary. So just the question is, why is this a temporary?
Through the mayor, thank you for your question, Councillor. I have broached this to the applicant themselves, and they are more comfortable with a three-year temporary extension or new temporary zoning bylaw amendment as opposed to the property being rezoned as a whole. So that might be something that you want to ask the owner as well.
Okay, thank you. Second question, have you checked with bylaw, given that they did have the 3 year, was there any complaints during that time?
Through the mayor, I can follow up with you on that. I don't have a concrete answer. There may have been complaints, I'm not sure. But from information from the owner, things ran smoothly.
Okay. I think that should be, I think it should be looked into, but I don't think there was any complaints either. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the planner? The owners are here and they're going to speak next. So if you have any questions that maybe are more suited to the owners, you can speak to them after they speak. Anything else for the planner? See none, thanks, Logan. And we'll call upon Daryl and Sherry Graham, or one or the other. Someone's going to come up and, she's on Zoom. There you are. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, did you want to speak to us, or are you here to answer questions?
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate that there were no complaints over the 3 years previously. So that I just would hope that that would be taken into consideration when the voting occurs for having it renewed.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions to the owner of the land, Sherry? Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So just a question, Sherry. This, as was noted earlier, this is a new temporary, it's not an extension. What was the rationale for letting it expire?
So the third year, we struggled to find staffing, so that's kind of why we didn't renew it. So this year we were approached because we were considering selling it, but this year we were approached by someone that's interested in leasing, like renting it or running it for us long term. So that's kind of why we're looking to have it renewed.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Miller?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sherry, I'll ask you the same question I asked the planner. You went for the temporary. Why the temporary, not a permanent?
Well, the fees are significantly more for a permanent permit. So that's kind of why we've chose just to see how things go again. And if we can get something going, that seems like somebody's going to be interested in working in it long term, then we would consider having it done permanently.
Okay, spoken like a businesswoman. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions, council, to the owner? Seeing none. This being a public meeting, I'm going to ask, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? If you do, you can come to the podium and speak. Seeing none, I'll ask for the second time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak for or against this application?
Can I say one more thing?
Okay.
I just would also like to say too, we've had lots of requests to have it reopened. So that's something that, the community is looking for because there's not a lot of options for places to eat in the area. So that's kind of another reason why we wanted to bring it back.
Thank you. With that being said, I'll ask for the third time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? Seeing none, I'll call this public meeting closed. And council, what do you want to do with the application? Councillor Coleman?
Move to receive, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, information, I'm seeking a seconder. Councillor Miller? Everything has been said. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Sherry. Takes us to number 9.2 on the agenda, which is 199 Jerseyville Road, and that's Pierre. Pierre is a new staff member.
Good afternoon, Mayor, councilors, and everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you all for the first time. My name is Pierre Bordeaux. Honored to join the County of Brant team as a planner. I bring with me a background rooted in green architecture, cultural heritage, and sustainable urban design and planning, a background that has been developed through graduate and postgraduate education, doctoral research, municipal experience across various jurisdictions, and my role as an adjunct professor at universities and colleges in both Quebec and Ontario, most recently at Redeemer University. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to my colleagues at the Planning Department for the opportunity to become part of this fantastic and forward-thinking community. I'm genuinely excited to contribute to the county's ongoing progress and to help implement a simply grand plan guiding the future of Brant. Now I would like to proceed to present 199 Jerseyville Road.
You might have to speak a little closer to your microphone there. I think they're having a hard time hearing you at the back. Thank you.
So this application is for information zoning bylaw amendment, ZBA 2324 KD. The subject lands are municipally known as 199 Jerseyville Road, located on the west side of Jerseyville Road, which is known as Highway 17, just south of the Jerseyville community. The lands are triangle in shape with a frontage of approximately 350 meters and a total area of 4.9 hectares. The applicants are J.H. Cohun Engineering Incorporation, and the owners are the Craver family. Both are present today. The existing conditions of this lot, the zoning bylaw, it is zoned agricultural, which permits a single detached dwelling. Surrounding properties are zoned rural residential and agricultural, particularly to the south and east. The County of Brant official plan 2012, the subject lands are designated rural residential. They are characterized by clusters of large lot residential developments serviced by private water and sanitary systems. The County of Brant Official Plan 2023 designation will be countryside. This proposal includes two components. The first component is a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone two portions of the subject lands referred to as proposed Part 1 and proposed Part 2. Both will be rezoned from agricultural to rural residential. The retained lands will remain zoned agriculture. The second component will be to sever the rezoned parcels to support future residential development. I might be available for any questions on this application.
Thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions for Pierre? Councilor Miller, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This may be to the planner or planning staff in general, but if I look at the official plan 2012, there's quite a bit of area that's listed as rural residential. And when we do the rural residential, it's usually one off, two offs, like tonight we have the two offs. But my understanding is water, which it'll be private, is an issue for this area, right? And we've never looked at it overall. We've never done a master environmental servicing plan or anything like that to see if the water quality, the water quantity is sufficient. The only reason I bring this up, well, I won't say the only reason, but it's ironic in that we have an application later on tonight where we've done just that, right? And we're planning staff's recommending refusal. So at what point do we say, enough's enough? We really should be looking at the water quality and water quantity for these residents.
Through the mayor, there is a hydrogeological assessment report is in progress to be developed and submitted to the staff to assess that will examine the quality of the water and the sufficiency of the lot to be able to be serviced.
Supplemental to that, but when you do a hydrogeological study, usually you're just looking at that property, are you not?
Yes.
You don't look at it in the broader context of all the houses going up, correct?
Through the mayor, the hydrogeological study have not been submitted yet, but I believe it will look into the area, not only the property.
Okay.
Through the mayor, just to supplement that,
the hydrogeological does focus on the site, but when they're doing some of the work with the water, they will be looking at surrounding wells, for example, making sure that they aren't drawing down from those neighboring wells, et cetera. So there is a bit of a broader context that is done, but it's not a full scale as an MESP would, like a more full-scale study would be of an area. But they do have to review the whole site in terms of water, quality, quantity, and then the sizability of a septic system. And as Pierre mentioned, we're looking to see that report soon before we were going to come back with a recommendation for the zoning and or the severance, because we want to ensure the lots are adequate.
And I'll point out, I mean, you sit around this table long enough and you hear, you know, this lot coming up, that lot coming up, and we have a lot of residents complaining about the water quality now, or quantity, so it is an issue. I don't know how to properly address it, but it's an issue.
Just back through the mayor to the council members, and historically, staff have not asked for this information in the past until after the severance as a condition. We're now asking for it up front. That's consistent with the provincial policy statement that they demonstrate adequate servicing. So now it has to be done up front in order for you to make the proper and informed decision of whether we should sever these lots and whether they're appropriately serviced.
Okay, thank you, and I hope the province doesn't consider hydrogeo studies to be red tape too, because I've heard that coming up too.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So, you know, with the fact that we're waiting for these results to come back, which is, in my mind, crucial to whether we approve this or not, I'm just wondering if even just receiving this is premature. Like if we don't have that information to go, I understand receiving it for information is just that, there's no action on it, but, you know, we've spoke around this table before about, you know, premature applications, and I'm just curious as to why we wouldn't have waited till we had that, potentially might not even have come to us.
Through the mayor to Councillor Pierce. We decided as staff, because this application is falling back to the old official plan, that we try bringing forward the information report, knowing full well the recommendation, the hydrogeological should be coming shortly, which would then inform the final recommendation where you're going to make the actual decision. So for the purposes of the discussion of an information meeting, this was adequate to move forward. And it was not identified in our original submission, our original request to the applicant for a complete application. So we are bound to keep moving under the Planning Act process. So we decided to move forward as a complete application without that, but have requested that now before we move forward to a recommendation report. So you will have time to see that report when the recommendation does come forward in the future. So it won't be in 2 weeks. It'll be a while until we know we have the recommendation, that actual report in front of us.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And following up on what Councillor Pierce said, talked about, but this application was deemed complete last September. Why the delay? I got it here as December 24, 2024. It's a long time since then. Why have we been waiting this long?
Yeah. I'll let Pierre go first then. Yeah.
Okay, through the mayor. So the application was deemed complete recently after the applicant has abided by the outcome of the pre-consultation meeting. However, the hydrogeological assessment was not outlined in the outcome of the pre-consultation meeting. The applicant was working on developing the hydrogeological assessment. However, it was a little bit taking some time. So we were abide by the transition policies of the new official plan to deem this complete because it was complete as per the time they did submit. And I would invite Jeremy as well to complement this point.
Through the mayor to Councillor Coleman. This one went through a bit of a transitional issue. So handled by a different planner originally back in September when the application came in. We deemed it incomplete, but wasn't very clear. There was some confusion between the planner and the consultant. We followed back up because we hadn't heard anything back, I think, in December or January. We followed back up to say what was the status, where things were going, realized there had been some confusion. rather than punish the applicants, we understood where things went wrong, and we think the best approach forward was moving this application forward based under the old plan when they had submitted, asking for this additional information at this point, because if they come forward under the current official plan, they wouldn't actually be allowed to proceed. They would not meet the new 2023 policies. So we didn't want to punish the applicant, the landowner, because of communication errors, essentially is what I'd call it, lack of good communication, and switching planners in between.
Through the mayor, if I want to compliment as well at this point. So we did study the area as well where the lot was existing, and we realized that most of lots on Jerseyville were rural residential, which means that it could be a good planning practice to rezone it rural residential as well.
Are there any other questions from council to the planner? Seeing none, thank you. I believe Bob's here. Want to come up and speak on behalf of the property owner?
I've learned this over the years. Thank you very much, Your Honor, the Mayor, and members of the committee. This is an application from the Carver family to sever 2 lots off their land holdings on Jerseyville Road. We thank planning staff for working with us through this. Obviously, water is an important issue for the severance of these 2 lots. They're rather large lots. They're 0.6 and 0.7 hectares in size. We have commissioned and are working on a hydrogeological study, and anticipate we'll have those results in the near future, but we certainly understand that until we get that report, we're not going very far. As I say, I think it's a simple application given what the planner has outlined to the committee, and we'll hope you receive it for information tonight, and we hope to be back for the approval in the near future.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Bob? Councilor Miller?
Just, you mentioned the size of the lots, and I still can't think of anything but acres, but yeah, they seem to be about 1.5 acres. Is that because of the unusual shape of the lots themselves, or?
Well, it's partly due to the irregular shape of the lot, but it's also their desire.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the owners? No? Okay, because this is an open meeting, is there anyone here tonight that wants to speak for or against this application? If you do, you can come up to the podium. I'll ask the second time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? And I'll ask for the third time, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? Seeing no one, I'll just declare the meeting closed. Thanks, Bob, for coming up.
Thank you.
Council, what do you want to do with the application? Councilor Pierce,
Move to receive, Mr. Mayor.
seeking a seconder to receive. Councilor Kyle, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. Thank you. Denise Landry. She's where? You're back? Come on out. Sorry.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. As many of you know, my name is Denise Landry, and I am a principal planner with Nethery Planning. Our company was retained by the county to assist with reviewing development applications and providing recommendations on behalf of the County of Brant Planning Department. Applications for a draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment to facilitate the creation of 108 lots for single detached dwellings, a park block, a stormwater management block, and a mixed-use residential commercial block were submitted to the county on May 30th, 2024, and deemed complete on June 19th, 2024. A statutory public meeting to receive feedback on the proposed concept was held on July 9th, 2024. All written comments are included as an appendix to the staff recommendation report and summarized in the report. This evening, County Council will consider the staff recommendation report and make a decision on the subject applications. The subject lands are identified on the slide in red and are located along 13th Concession in the community of Scotland. The total land area is approximately 65 hectares, and 34.5 hectares, or 55% of the subject lands, are located within the secondary urban settlement boundary of Scotland. The subject lands contain no buildings or structures and are currently being farmed. The site is located adjacent to a residential subdivision to the southeast. This area of the county is serviced by private infrastructure, and future development will require private well and sanitary. As the subject application was deemed complete prior to the approval of the county's new official plan, the application was reviewed under the 2012 official plan. The subject lands are designated suburban residential and agriculture in the county's 2012 official plan. Only the lands designated suburban residential are proposed to be developed, and those lands are identified in the orangey brown color on the map in front of you. The first submission of the proposed draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment proposed the creation of 108 lots for single detached dwellings, a park block, the stormwater management block, and a mixed-use residential commercial block. The zoning proposed to reduce the minimum lot area from 3,000 meters squared, which is approximately 3/4 of an acre, to 2,000 meters squared, which is approximately half an acre. County staff raised concerns with the hydrogeological report, as it was only a preliminary assessment and testing and sampling of the groundwater to understand nitrate levels had not taken place. The stormwater management design also needed to be updated to include the requirements for legal outlets and ensuring that the requirements met the design criteria under the environmental compliance approval. After holding the statutory public meeting and receiving initial feedback from staff and agencies, the applicant revised the proposed draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment application and submitted revised technical studies. The proposed plan before you tonight now includes 77 single detached lots, a park block, a stormwater management block, and multiple walkway paths. The park block was moved to be adjacent to the stormwater management pond, and the mixed-use residential commercial block was removed. The zoning bylaw amendment is no longer requesting a reduction in lot area. County staff, with the assistance of peer review consultants, provided comments on the revised plan and studies. The hydrogeological report, analytical results for nitrate from the site indicate high levels of nitrate. Where health-related Ontario drinking water quality standards criteria are not met, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks recommends against approval of a development based on individual wells. The assessment has identified that the site cannot sustain private wastewater servicing. County staff and peer review consultants still had concerns regarding stormwater management and the one outlet as it proposes to drain overland through private properties, which is not permitted. It was recommended to the applicant that they align the subdivision plan with the findings of the Master Environmental Servicing Plan that is currently underway, to ensure that the site-specific servicing and transportation planning align with the long-term goals for full build-out of the entire community. The staff report concludes that the proposal to change the zoning on the subject lands to facilitate the creation of 77 single-detached lots, a park block, stormwater management block, and multiple walkway blocks is not appropriate and does not represent good planning, as there are significant private servicing concerns that pose risks associated with the protection of water, environment, and human health. County staff recommend that the applicant align the subdivision plan with the findings of the Master Environmental Servicing Plan to ensure that the site-specific servicing and transportation planning align with the long-term goals for full build-out of the community. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to address any comments that County Council has. Thank you.
Yeah, before we do that, I didn't have the right papers in front of me when I introduced you. I didn't even say what the address was. It's a public hearing under the Planning Act to consider the staff recommendation. It's 29 13th Concession Road. So I'm sorry about that. It wasn't a very good start for you. Council have any questions for the report? Seeing none, thank you. We have Rashika here, Rashika Anguish. She's going to speak as the agent.
We are here seeking approval for phase 1 of the plan of subdivision. Staff provided an overview of the application over last year and a bit. Thank you. Over last year and a bit, we have been working with staff with respect to addressing comments, whether it's the design of the subdivision, the number of lots, mixed use, technical assessments, water, nitrate assessments, and so a lot of information has been provided to date. Water, as was noted in staff report, remains a concern. However, we provided additional information with respect to enhanced treatment that is available through the technological assessments for enhanced treatment for potable water as well as for the septic beds. And that's why we propose to move ahead with simply phase 1 with 16 residential lots on private services. There are draft conditions that can always address a number of further assessments or further to satisfy any concerns, but however, we are not there yet, seems like. So we are seeking, we're hoping to get approval on phase 1, putting a holding provision on the remaining stages of the subdivision so that additional technical assessments and MESP, which is this county-initiated study, which can be completed in time to address the balance of the subdivision. Very short and simple request in front of you. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Unless Bob, you want to add something? No.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Rashika? Councilor Coleman, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, to you, the delegation, you're proposing that you're looking for an amendment to the night's motion to approve phase 1 only?
Through you, Mayor, to the councilor, that's what the revised submission was proposed. Only approval of phase one for draft plan of subdivision and removal of holding on phase one, keeping the holding on balance of the subdivision so that we can continue working with staff on addressing the remaining pieces.
No.
Mr. Pierce, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Rosika, can you just elaborate a little bit on, like, you say there's different things that you can do with the water to, can you just elaborate a little bit on what the proposal is here?
Do you want to help?
What we're talking about, is this something that they would have to put in their wells, or what are we talking here?
Okay, from a septic point of view, there are systems out there that can reduce the nitrates in the effluent into the septic bed. Theoretically, you can reduce that significantly. Obviously, we're facing the impacts of the farming activities that have happened over the years on the property. So what we're proposing is these systems which are totally approved under the Ontario Building Code to reduce nitrates in the effluent. Theoretically, you take water out of the groundwater, use it through your home, treat it, and put it back into the septic system, and it's actually better than the groundwater that's there today. That's the theory there. Obviously, there's the other aspect of this where you have to treat the water for use in the home. Those are fairly simple systems to eliminate the nitrates in the water that's used in the home. That's what's being proposed here.
Okay, and if I follow up, if I could, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And these systems, of ones maybe in the area that are being used already, or is this a common system that's used?
They're not complicated systems, and as I said, from a septic point of view, they are approved by through the Ontario Building Code, but obviously there probably was some background work done with the ministry on those, and they're very effective in removing nitrates. Water treatment, reverse osmosis systems.
Right.
They're prevalent in lots of Brant County, including the city.
Okay. Thanks, Bob.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for staff related to the input we just got from Bob. What is the staff understanding of the systems that Bob is talking about, and would they make a difference to the staff recommendation?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bell, I'm not the best expert to answer the water question, these questions. Andrea is here tonight because she is our expert, but I can tell you there's lots of theory, but the practicality is the concern. Not to mention the fact that, yes, these systems may exist, but the cost to operate them and the ensuring of a landowner to operate them properly is questionable. So we can't ensure that they will actually be operating to the standards they need to if we leave them in the hands of a general individual. But Andrea can answer that more specifically and give you better answers than I can.
Yep. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Bell. Thanks for the opportunity to answer this question. There's two real large concerns with the development as proposed, even with phase one. The first concern here is reliable, safe drinking water for this development. Okay, so 4 out of 5 wells that were drilled on this site exceeded the drinking water quality standard for nitrates of 10 milligrams per liter. So the province is extremely clear when it comes to health-related parameters. They do not recommend private treatment systems. And the reason for that is because the risk to human health when consuming this water is too high. So an untrained person can't, for the long term, be relied on to properly maintain these individual treatment systems. So regardless of if we're phasing the development or working with the applicant on a solution for drinking water for the full development, we still don't have a good solution for a drinking water source for this development. The second part of the conversation here is private sewage treatment. So this development, as it stands, has high nitrates, and a lot of this is a result of the agricultural practices on this property and in the surrounding areas. The groundwater flow through this property is southeasterly, so it heads towards the current settlement area. All of those people currently drink that water. So what we're talking about, adding additional septic systems, although he's correct that tertiary treatment can improve the effluent quality, we're already above what's acceptable for drinking water, and now we're suggesting putting more into the system. So what staff is suggesting is to not approve the application as is, for the applicant to wait for the findings of the Master Environmental Servicing Plan. We're really looking at finding a community-wide solution here so that we can sustainably develop this community and ensure that their drinking water is safe.
Yeah, through to Bob. Bob, you mentioned we're talking about the quality of water, and obviously that's a concern. And I know the people that have high nitrates at the provincial upper level, they're quite concerned. But the water quality is one aspect. There's also water quantity, right? And I didn't realize that either. That water quantity is also an issue. Did you find that out from your hydrogeo reports?
I gotta defer that question to the hydrogeologist.
Okay.
If I could say that word.
I believe we have Melissa Kay. I'm going to defer this to Melissa. Melissa, you're online.
Thank you, Rashika. First, I'd like to apologize. I was hoping to be at the meeting in person, but I had a previous commitment, so I'm happy to be able to at least participate remotely. So to Mr. Mayor, through the mayor to the councillor, we did investigate the water quantity, and through various pump testing on all of the wells that were installed on the subject property, and we did find there's not a water quantity issue. We have enough to sustain the proposed residential dwellings.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Because this is an open meeting, is there anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this proposal? If you do, come on up to the podium, please. You have 10 minutes, and then we'll have questions. If you can just give us your full name and address, please, for the clerk. Thank you.
I just want to make a brief comment regarding residential development in our community. I hear, I find it a little ironic that... Okay, thank you. I find it a little ironic that particularly the last few years in the summer, we get advisories to limit our water use because the water table is low. And yet we want to add stress to the town water environment by putting more homes in. I'm also concerned when I hear solutions for the development based on theory. We have a modern septic system on our street, all the homes do, and yet we have low water issues, we have nitrate issues. So I find it disturbing and alarming, and I know I speak for a lot of residents in Scotland, by expanding the town when we have these issues. So I just wanted to share my personal concern, and I know a lot of the people on our street. Thank you.
Any questions to the presenter? Council, have any questions? No? Somebody else want to come and speak? Yep, come on up. Again, just your full name and your address, please, for the clerk. You have 10 minutes.
Okay.
Is this on? Hi, I'm Danielle Demeyer, 74 Maple Ave South, Scotland. So I don't know how these things work. I have a few concerns. I don't know if the social aspect has been considered yet either. Like, I mean, obviously we know we just spent 10 minutes talking about 2 lots in Jerseyville and we're talking about 77 in Scotland. So I think that I have a very unique perspective. I work in development. I love my job. I'm a project manager. I work for Vicano. I've worked for private residential companies. I've worked in Waterloo. I've worked in Hamilton. I've worked in Cambridge. So I see firsthand how amazing residential developments can be for communities. I've seen how it can impact. Waterloo does an exceptional job of this. Their planning is down. But before they do all this, they have social systems in place. They have hospitals. They have schools. They have daycares. They have banks. Our bank was recently shut down in Scotland. They have all of these things in place before they do development. I also have a very unique perspective because I have that, but I'm also a 4th generation farmer. My grandparents are 90 and 85 years old. They came here from Belgium. They were originally tobacco farmers, broke the land. They created what Scotland is today, and they helped establish the community that everyone's proud to be a part of. They've seen firsthand through 4 generations of farming how even the subdivision that my parents bought in, which is the original one in Scotland across from the elementary school, they've seen how even that development affect water supply. And so again, I second his opinion about, this is all based on theory. A lot of us here today are farmers or residents and have been residents of Scotland for many years. And theory aside, we need proof. We need proof that this isn't going to impact the major agricultural land that this is. And now more than ever, with tariffs coming, it's important to show that this is Canada and this is Ontario and we're the major vegetable garden of Ontario. We have to feed all these people. So how are we going to do this with no water to even have people live in their houses? But we also have to keep in mind that we have to water all these fields. We have to we're taking prime agricultural land that is perfect sandy soil for vegetables, and we're altering it for people to live. And that's great, but it's all about location. And I don't think this location is prime now, and I don't think it will be in 25 years. And I think that's more evident than ever with our current economic state about how we need to keep things local, and we're basically eliminating our ability to do that in this community. Any questions?
Questions to the presenter? Delegation. Thank you. Anyone else want to come up? No one else? Oh, we have someone. Again, just your name and your address, please, for the clerk.
Okay. Hi, my name's Davina Kaminsky. I live at 1877 Wyndham Road 2. So my husband, he's a farmer. He runs Kaminsky Limited in Scotland, and I have the farm market Sam's Place, and we do that together. So I'm more about the farming aspect, and this area, it's an agricultural area. So just a little bit so we farm around 2,000 acres, 1,000 acre split between fresh fruits and vegetables and rotated with cash crops. Our products include strawberries, sweet corn, cheddar peppers, cantaloupe, watermelon, and 100% of this produce is shipped and sold across Canada. We don't export any of it. With this, around 1,000 acres of farmland that we either own or rent are down Maple Ave alone, and within a mile or 2 radius from this proposed subdivision. And to the subdivision between the north, the south, and the west, we directly farm those areas. Over the past years, we have invested heavily into technology and infrastructure, and we're at the point where we can expand and produce a lot more produce, but we don't have the land to do that. Part of making this business work and being efficient is having land that is located close to where you already are, so you're not spending a ton of money going 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers to work other lands, shipping, moving equipment around. That's just not efficient and it doesn't really work. So yeah, with what we have, we could essentially, without expanding our technology and infrastructure, we could essentially double what we grow if there was the land available. So it's just, like was mentioned before, like prime agricultural land being turned into houses where then that opportunity is now lost forever. So another concern that we have is over the past few years, stealing from fields is a major thing that we notice happening more and more every year. Not talking about just like a couple things here and there, but I've seen people walk out with hampers of peppers out of our field or a van full with 20 or 30 watermelons in it. We've gotten to the point where we hide where our fields are. We plant other crops in front of them where it's visible to the road to deter people from just stealing our product. With this subdivision, the fact that we operate many farms that will be visible literally to the backyard of this is a major concern for us. I mean, we shouldn't have to be at the point where we have to hide what we grow, but that's just how it is. So not only a loss of product, but just damage to our ground as well, whether plastic is ripped and torn, plants are trampled on, people pick stuff up, realize they don't want it, toss it. It's just, that's all things that we have to deal with. And then again, with 77 houses, say 77 cars, a minimum, if not more, just the problems we'll have with moving equipment, moving tractors around. I mean, there's already lots of impatient drivers, so that's just a further concern for us because there's only one exit out of this subdivision and there's only 2 directions that you're going. So it just, that's a lot more traffic that way. So that's just what I had to say.
Thank you for your presentation. Is there any, council, do you have any questions for the delegation? No. Thank you. Thank you for growing watermelons. I love watermelons. Okay. Is there anyone else in the room that wants to come up? Come on up. Need your name and your address for the clerk. You have 10 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Sabrina Hart. I live in Scotland. I've been up here a few times, so everybody should know me by now. Although we are talking about the proposal for the 77 houses on the 13th concession tonight and this application, I think we should not be blindsided by just this one application. There are many, many applications either on the horizon or are actually in with staffing that are waiting to see what happens here. And we need to make some smart choices. We need to make the right choice. We need to ensure that the current community residents are not being negatively impacted by decisions that we just make today. We need to make decisions that are going to take us into the future, whether that's 10 years, 20 years, etc. And so what concerns me is that it seems like there isn't a week that goes by that I don't have a flyer in my mail slot at the post office that says, hey, we just sold some more property around you. Great. So there's a pattern here. There's more development coming. And if we don't handle this appropriately and positively, I think we're going to run into problems. And the community members are going to be greatly impacted. And it's all fine to say in theory that these RO systems can help the nitrate, but where's the quantity of water? We can maybe help the quality, maybe, but where's this quantity coming from? How far down can you drill? I just don't see the solution for that. So anyways, I just wanted to make sure that staff and council members and community members are aware of other properties that are waiting and watching. And just please make some appropriate decisions moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council to the delegation? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone else in the room that wants to come up and speak? Yeah, come on up. And just your name and your address, please, for the clerk.
My name's Shirley, and I live on Rural Turn. We've been mentioning about water, which we all know that's going to be an issue. And Sabrina, you just mentioned about how much our applications are out there for it. What about our schools? Is the council here going to approve putting up a big school and paying for it? Our roads on 24, it's a single lane both ways. The traffic already now with the with Paris growing the way it has and Simcoe, we can't handle it. People are doing 100 kilometers on that road thinking it's a thing. We don't have the hospitals. Brantford, you can't go to Brantford Hospital and not wait for hours to get in to go to emergency or see a doctor. I mean, it's one thing, all the water and that, but just everything else, the way it's going to affect our community. And the council has not said, oh yeah, we're going to put up another school, we're going to put up a high school, we're going to put up more. There's nothing said about that, and that's the part that, I mean, we all going to grow, but it's like you guys are putting the cart way before the horse. So that's the only thing I have to say too.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. We at the county don't have anything to do with the schools. You know that they do that on their own. And the highways, of course, is someone else too. It's the Ministry of Transportation. Is my microphone not working? So the schools, I wish we could magically put schools where we need them, but it's not our business to do that. We obviously have recommendations. We have some new schools coming to the county, which was a bit of a surprise to us too. We're glad they're coming, but it's not our business to do schools, and it's not our business. The highway is what it is. It's the Ministry of Transportation, and we are in touch with them, and we're fighting with them every day of the week. You have no idea what it's like to manage major highways like that. And 24 having the reputation that it's always had is always a struggle for us at council and for the County of Brant. And the other lady who spoke about the infrastructure, you have to understand the County of Brant is only 24 years old. So that's why we don't have banks, and we don't have all these things that people want everywhere. It's been assumed that the County of Brant is comparable to the City of Brantford or the City of Simcoe, and we just aren't. That's just not the truth. We amalgamated in 2000, actually 1999, and we've been catching up ever since. So although all your comments are valid, please understand that the people around this table aren't the ones that are the ones that aren't doing it. We're doing everything as much as we can. We have to catch up with libraries, and we have to catch up with all kinds of other things too. So we do hear you, and we do understand all your comments, but please don't, we have enough on our plate to worry about schools. I've been on a tour of schools this week, all the way from Caledonia to Cayuga and back. So I understand the problems with schools. And the City of Brantford has 3 Catholic high schools, and I don't have any here in the county. So there's, at some time you got to stop too and wonder where the fairness is. Luckily, the 3rd school in the city is very close to St. George, and the kids in St. George are going to be able to ride their bikes to the Brantford High School. So I do like the placement of that. And we do have a health hub now in Paris, as you know, which is one of our biggest accomplishments in the last few years, which is our bit of a problem solved for the hospitals. And so we are doing what we can to mention, you mentioned all these things that we seem to be short of, and we really are well aware of all of it, and we are trying to do our very best. And we certainly hear all your concerns about this subdivision and where it is and whether it's appropriate or whether it's not. And we're going to vote tonight. And you're right, we are voting, I think, for the future. So with that being said, is there anyone else in the room that has anything to say to this application, to or for this application? Okay, so I'm going to ask for the second time. Is there anyone else in the room that wants to speak to or against this application? And I'll ask for the third time, if there's anyone in the room that wants to speak to or against this application. And seeing none, I'll call the meeting closed, and I'll take it back to council and ask council, we have a recommendation in front of us. The recommendation is to refuse this application. Council, can I get someone to put it on the floor, please? Councillor Bell, I need a seconder for Councillor Bell. Councillor Chambers. Any discussion? Councillor Chambers.
If I could just, I'm trying to recall, I recollect when we were doing the official plan update, the urban settlement boundary was appealed and the tribunal came back with a ruling placing the H on the property. And there were conditions that they required for the H to be removed. And I'm trying to recollect what those conditions were. It's my vague recollection that it was contingent upon proper handling of water and wastewater. And I wonder if staff can find that wording because I think it's germane, and I think the staff report indicates that there are still problems with water and wastewater which wouldn't meet the tribunal's criteria for removing the H, so I don't think we should. So that's why I support the recommendation.
Right. I don't know whether staff has that information available to them right at the moment. I know that that information has been documented and it can be brought forward, Councillor Chambers, and we'll get it to you. But when water's the issue, whenever water's the issue, that is a direct responsibility of the council. And when I say the council, I mean the 10 of us and me. Whenever there's water problem, there's other problems, grading problems, other problems, they are the problems of other people. But when I hear water and I see all the evidence that's been brought forward on this report, suggesting that it's all about water, it's all about levels of water, it makes me very nervous. Water is one of those things we're going to have till we don't. It's going to be good till it isn't. We had wonderful water in St. George, and one day we stopped it. We had to stop the flow of the water at the Legion in St. George because things change. Things are always changing. We had a wonderful well on 24 Highway just outside of Glen Morris. People would stop, and they said it made the best communion wine in all of Portugal. And it got closed down because it changed. Everything changes. And I see this as a very strong report suggesting that maybe we need to vote and we need to support people that know what they're talking about. So with that being said, we have it on the floor. It's been seconded. Is there any other comments other than Councillor Chambers is going to get the information he needs to know about the water? Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just to in some ways echo your sentiment with respect to the water and the nervousness when there's such strong evidence that suggests it's maybe not the best way to move forward. Outside of council, I work in the beef sector, and it's the 25th anniversary of the Walkerton water disaster. Not that this is the same, but that's obviously an agricultural related water incident that spurred on the rural water quality and all of this testing that we're now doing now to try and head off incidents like that happening again in the future. And so with that in mind, I do tend to be aligned with the staff's recommendation on this one, simply for the fact that the water could potentially be negatively affected.
Thank you. Oh, Alicia has your answer, Councillor Chambers.
Thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Chambers' question, although, sorry, trying to see you, although I don't have a specific response, generally the issue with regards to the H for Strema was with regards to servicing allocation. So it was quantity of water, not quality of water. So that was what the OLT placed upon that, was when there was sufficient servicing allocation at that location, then the holds could be removed.
Councillor Chambers?
Just a supplementary, and maybe the general manager can comment. I'm thinking that the recommendation has reasons for refusal attached to it. And I'm in my mind, I was thinking that one of the reasons should be that it is inconsistent with the tribunal direction. And I think you're telling me that that would not be a reason. Am I understanding that?
Through your worship to Councillor Chambers' question, and maybe Jeremy could jump in here. With respect to the reasons, those are the kind of the 4 reasons test under the Planning Act. So it would have to be a Planning Act related reason. I'm not sure if consistency with an OLT decision, since it's not a precedent building body, they don't, it's not like a court where they rely upon precedent. They can come to individual decisions similar to kind of like a small claims court, but maybe I'll let Jeremy talk about the planning reasons that can be included in the recommendation.
Jeremy?
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Chambers. So the recommendation with the holding provision is there to say this is the reason why we should lift the holding. We still want to give planning, we're giving our recommendation based on the planning justification, whether they conform to the provincial policy statement, the official plan, et cetera. So the recommendation in front of you tonight is to deal with the planning matters and the recommendation why we won't support it under the planning purposes. It doesn't really necessarily have to tie back to the holding provision itself, because we're weighing it against the planning issues in front of us and the planning policies. So it doesn't have to tie back to that holding provision. It's just a reference there that we wouldn't lift it because you haven't even addressed those planning issues yet. You haven't got there yet. You could add it, but it's not needed.
And I'm just thinking, since this application in one form or another has been before the Ontario Land Tribunal once already, I'm just thinking that if it goes back, we need to have a strong case if we wish to support our recommendation, and that's why I asked those questions.
And through the mayor, if you wish to add it, it would not hurt the situation whatsoever. It's up to council's choice.
Well, I would leave it to your good judgment in going forward.
Thanks, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Bell, you're next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the report or the recommendation, it talks about concerns related to human health. As a member of the Board of Health, I'd be interested to know if the Grand Erie Public Health have expressed any opinions on this.
Have we asked for opinions from the health unit?
I will defer that to Andrea to answer that clearly.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, we have been in talks with Grand Erie Public Health about this. We did work with them when we sent out the water quality public advisory, and we are setting up a meeting to talk about the results that we have from the current nitrate testing, and then also doing some additional water quality testing, and get an understanding of what the municipal responsibility and the public health responsibility is for the existing community as well.
Any other questions? We have something that's on the floor. It's been seconded. It's to support the staff recommendation in front of us. Everyone's clear? All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. Thank you. Takes us to 10.2 on the agenda. Again, it's a public meeting regarding the 4 units as of right. Who is going to speak to that? We'll just take a minute so people can leave the chamber. Thank you. Drive carefully. Drink bottled water. See you. Okay, 10.2.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Negin Musavi Branjagi, Junior Planner with the county. I'm here to present zoning bylaw amendments to permit 4 units as of right in fully serviced areas of Paris and St. George. To give a brief background on this project initiated on February 11th when Council received a report as information and directed staff to proceed with the zoning bylaw amendment to permit 4 units as of right in Paris and St. George. Staff presented preliminary zoning changes on April 8th Council meeting for information and input, during which both Council and members of the public provided comments. Additional public consultation opportunities were provided through notice on the Brantford Expositor, as well as Engage Brand platform to make residents aware of this project and to invite any feedback they may have. Comments received from Council and public have informed further review of local zoning provisions and are reflected in the recommendation report and draft zoning bylaw. Overall, the proposed recommendations are based on 2 main themes. The first one is housing supply and delivery, with the intent to increase opportunities for diverse and innovative housing options in fully serviced areas. And the second theme is change management, with the intent to introduce new housing types in a way that protects existing residents from unintended negative impacts. This includes removing overly restrictive requirements, adding supportive provisions to ensure responsible growth, and maintaining zoning regulations that have effectively mitigated negative impacts. Under the first theme, one recommendation is to add 4plexes as a permitted use for all urban residential zones. This will result in permitting all dwelling types that can accommodate up to 4 units in low-density residential zones, including R1, R2, and RM1 zones. This change aligns with preliminary findings of the county's housing needs assessment, which identifies affordability, diversity, availability, and accessibility as the 4 key housing challenges in the county. Given that approximately 80% of housing growth in the county has been dominated by single detached dwellings, the proposed amendment to increase permitted uses in R-class zones can support the county's housing diversity needs by encouraging gentle density through the development of more inclusive, innovative, and affordable housing models. Another recommended amendment is to add duplexes as a permitted use for RM2 zones and to remove triplexes from the list of permitted uses for RM3 zones to better distinguish between these 2 zones, which are multiple density and multiple high density zones. To complement this amendment, an additional footnote is proposed to request a minimum of 4 attached dwelling units for RM3 zones to better reflect the intended higher density character of this zone. No changes are currently proposed for group homes and lodging houses. Their definitions and related regulations will be further reviewed as part of the Housing Needs Assessment project. Here's how the permitted use table would look like after implementing the proposed changes. I would like to note that the recommended amendments would result in the permitted uses for R1, R2, and RM1 zones becoming almost the same, which will be addressed in the upcoming zoning housekeeping project to consolidate these zones and simplify interpretation. Essentially, subject to meeting the applicable zoning requirements, a total of up to 4 dwelling units are permitted per lot in any R-class zone, which may include the principal dwelling unit and up to 3 additional residential units. Under the second theme, it is proposed to remove restrictive zoning regulations. The first amendment is to remove the definition of a converted dwelling to avoid redundancy and unnecessary classification of ARUs. The second amendment is to remove the existing only condition for duplexes within R1 and R2 zones to allow the inclusion of both newly constructed duplex dwellings as well as those created through conversion. Another proposed change is to remove the combined regulation of 45% overall lot coverage limit in low-density R-class zones, allowing for clearer separation between the lot coverage limits for primary dwelling, which would remain at 40%, and those for detached accessory buildings or structures. All of the recommendations that I've listed here are the same as the proposed preliminary changes. An additional amendment is proposed regarding the maximum lot coverage for detached accessory buildings or structures to remove the 95 square meter limit and base lot coverage solely on percentage, which is currently 15%. Here you can see a table that shows example of average lot sizes along Rest Acres Road, representing more recent subdivisions, and along Dundas Street, which represents older established areas. As you can see, applying the 15% coverage in older established areas may result in a lot coverage that exceeds the 95 square meter limit. Removing the 95 square meter limit would provide greater flexibility, especially for larger lots, to accommodate ARUs that exceed this limit. Here are some 3D visualizations of lot coverage on both smaller and larger parcels. As shown, larger lots have a greater capacity to accommodate larger ARUs. Another amendment is related to the maximum height for detached habitable structures. As part of the 4 Units as of Right initiative, it is recommended to enable 2-level detached buildings, which would support the inclusion of ground-level parking with habitable space above and provide opportunities for smaller properties to accommodate more living space within a compact footprint. Given that the existing 4.5 meter requirement is not sufficient to accommodate a 2-story detached structure, staff initially proposed an increased maximum height of 6 meters, which is consistent with regulations in other Ontario municipalities, such as Hamilton and London. That said, there are examples from other municipalities and the Federal Housing Design Catalog that go beyond the 6 meter. For example, the City of Guelph allows up to 6.1 meters, while in Alberta, there are examples reaching 6.73 meters and 6.89 meters in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. While looking at local regulation for maximum accessory structure height, staff also reviewed a relevant local example, which was a minor variance application for 6 Anne Street in Paris. The application involved a 2nd-story ARU above a detached garage with a requested maximum height of 6.9 meters and a measured midpoint roof height of 6.24 meters. Based on the CMHC's design catalog, regulations from other municipalities, as well as a local example that we've seen, it is recommended to set a maximum height of 6.5 meters specifically for habitable accessory structures, with the existing 4.5 meter limit continuing to apply to non-habitable accessory structures. The proposed maximum 6.5 meter height would provide a reasonable balance by minimizing the need for future zoning relief requests while meeting the building code requirements. The next group of proposed amendments are to include supportive zoning regulations to ensure responsible growth and enhance clarity. One of the amendments under this theme is to include a list of dwelling types that would allow for ARUs in the additional residential unit definition. Another amendment is to add a regulation specifying the number of permitted ARUs and the associated building configurations, which will be up to 3 units attached or within the primary dwelling and up to 2 units in a detached structure. I would like to note that the potential to allow up to 3 ARUs within a detached structure will be considered at a later stage as part of future housekeeping changes if deemed necessary. Also, it is proposed to prohibit any rooftop amenity space above the 2nd story of a detached structure unless it meets the maximum building height. This provision is intended to prevent overlook onto neighboring properties and address any privacy concerns. The last recommendation under this theme is to require an increased interior side yard and rear yard setback of 3 meters for two-level detached structures with the intent of providing adequate buffer from adjacent lots. The 3D visualization on this slide demonstrates the required rear yard and side yard setback depending on the type, whether it is attached or detached, and number of ARUs. If an ARU is attached to the principal building, it will be subject to the setbacks required for the associated zone, which is a minimum 6-meter rear yard setback and 1.2 meter side yard setback. For detached ARUs, the required setback will be either 1.2 meters or 3 meters, depending on whether a one-level or two-level structure is being proposed. Except for amendments mentioned so far, no changes are being proposed to zoning requirements for parking, landscape open spaces, unobstructed access, lot frontage, and lot area, to ensure that future infills remain gentle in nature and to minimize impacts on existing developments. Also, any residential development and redevelopment must demonstrate the availability of adequate servicing to the satisfaction of county staff. These required standards, along with site-specific conditions, can influence the potential uptake of the 4 units initiative. For example, based on the minimum parking requirements shown in Table 4, at least 5 parking spaces would be required for 4 dwelling units, assuming that the primary dwelling unit fronts a public street and includes 3 ARUs. While larger lots may be able to achieve these parking requirements, smaller lots are unlikely to accommodate sufficient parking for more than 3 dwelling units. I would like to note that the minimum parking requirements would be higher for other housing forms, such as condominiums on private streets, as they must provide 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, plus an additional 0.35 visitor spaces per unit. If these unit types are not planned to accommodate the additional parking at the development stage, they will not support this intensification, and the ARUs will not be supported. Here you can see the minimum parking requirements based on the number of dwelling units for larger and smaller lots. As mentioned earlier, smaller parcels lack sufficient space to meet the minimum parking requirements for more than 3 dwelling units. The proposed zoning bylaw amendments are consistent with the provincial planning statement in promoting the provision of a range and mix of housing options, permitting and facilitating residential intensification within previously developed areas, and optimizing existing and planned infrastructure. The amendments are also consistent with the county's official plan in encouraging housing options across a wide range of prices, occupancy types, and tenures, promoting innovative, compatible, sustainable, and high-quality housing in compact built forms, and enabling more flexible zoning standards. The 4 units as of right would also support the county in receiving federal funding and upgrading housing enabling infrastructure. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you for that report. It was very efficient, very well done. We do have a registered delegation to speak, so we'll have them speak first, and after she spoke, we'll ask for questions. So Karen, if you want to come up.
Thank you, Mayor Bailey and councilors. You'll have to, I'm nervous, I'm frustrated, so bear with me, please. I did submit a letter, and hopefully you all did receive a copy of it. So I'm here representing the, I'm going to say long-term residents of Paris and St. George. And just the concerns are to do with our older residential areas, with our beautiful, some of the homes that have, they're just unique. So my understanding is that someone can come in and take that lovely home up on St. Andrews Street and make it into a fourplex, and the lovely front grass and backyard are now become a parking lot. Am I right in that, in what I've gathered from the proposal?
So although it provides regulation to allow for such a thing to happen, any single lot that would like to have such development would need to meet a list of regulations, and there are lots of lots within the county that would not be eligible for having 4 units.
And I do believe that there was an instance up on Rest Acres Road, the new builds, and some people had bought there, and it was with the idea that there was going to be a 4-unit level behind them. Lo and behold, they appealed that and went for a bigger unit. I don't know how big, it was a multi-unit. The people said, like, no, that's not what we agreed to when we bought here a couple of years ago. But that was denied. So they, the multi-unit is going ahead, as far as my understanding is. So what I'm saying is, what do we have in place that, yes, it's going to be 4 units, it's not going to go to a multi-unit, and the neighbors have absolutely no recourse at all? Is that, am I correct in that? Like, I don't know who to, sorry, I don't know who to ask here.
It's best to ask staff.
Yeah, through Mayor Bailey. So good evening. I'm Brandon Courtleaf, Manager of Policy Planning. And we've chatted a little bit about this as well. So just for some context with respect to the changes that are being made, there are regulations in the zoning that will prohibit folks from putting 4 units in or putting any additional units in if they can't meet the parking requirements, if they can't meet the setbacks, if they're, for example, too close to the neighbor's property line or too high. There are some restrictions in place that are being maintained, and they have mitigated that, we believe, efficiently to this point. So that being said, there, as Nagina stated, there are many properties that likely won't qualify for this type of infill, but it is the ones that there is that opportunity for that we'd like to add that flexibility for, and that's kind of the purpose of this.
Okay, so I guess my one scenario is, so we've lived in this bungalow, this is just saying, we lived in this bungalow for 40 years now, and we've stayed in Paris. We didn't want the big city life, we wanted the quiet country life, and now the bungalow beside us is just sold, and now it's a 4-unit complex, and because they need the parking, that front yard is gone, and that backyard is gone because it's now a parking lot. Is this a scenario that could happen?
Through the mayor, so there are restrictions on how much of the lot can be used for parking. There is a requirement to maintain a certain percentage as landscaped space, so as grass. And if they were to come in and pave that and create a parking lot out of that, but it was to go beyond that, it wouldn't be permitted.
Okay. I guess what I'm asking is, why are we doing this to our older, established residential areas? Do it in the new areas, the new builds and that, so that when somebody comes to buy, they can see that it's going to be a fourplex. They can see that there's going to be an apartment building there. They still buy. They're doing that with full knowledge. They've mad that. We've been here for years. That has never been on the board. And we're here, we're in Paris because we're the, and this isn't right. This says the prettiest town in Canada, and it's not. The true wording was the prettiest little town in Paris. So I'd like to just kind of bring that to councillors' minds. And you are our voice. Everybody can't come up here and spout off. So we're looking to you to do what's right for our little town. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any questions for the delegation? Presenter? No? Okay, well, thank you. Okay. Are there any questions to the policy and the presenter? Councillor Miller, you're first.
Just, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's actually not a policy question, it's a practical question. But the way the the 4 units will be set up, do all the services have to come from one? Is there one service, like for gas, one service for hydro, one service for water?
Through the mayor to councillor, yes.
All right. And if they wanted to meter it, do we have a mechanism for that?
Sorry, I don't understand.
If you wanted to meter the gas off or the hydro off to different units, how do we do that?
Through the mayor to Councilor Miller, there's one service into the site. Once you get to the building, they can meter it and split it off to each of the units. So they'll be split, that's done on site and on the property. Right now, the policy from engineering staff is obviously one service per unit to the property, basically. And after that, you split it out somewhere on site.
Okay, and then my understanding from Rob Walton was you don't want multiple, more utilities going underground and all that, so, okay.
Councillor House?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for staff, and I'm hoping that this, if the answer goes the way I think it's going to, I'm hoping that this may alleviate some of the concerns from the delegation, because I did have a phone conversation with that constituent a couple weeks ago. My question is, we're currently looking at permitting 4 units as of right, and there's a fear among some people that these are going to spring up all over the place, and the example that Karen made could be next door to her bungalow. But I wanted to point out that for a number of years, I believe now, 3 units have been allowed, and they have not sprung up all over the place. There have been some places where it's happened, but I'm wondering if staff could please just speak to how long have 3 units been allowed, and what kind of uptake did we see in that? And I'm not looking for precise numbers, but if they could just speak to it anecdotally.
Through mayor to councillor, yes, as you mentioned, previously it's been allowed to have up to 3 units per lot, which we saw that both in St. George and Paris, the uptake even for the second unit was pretty low. So we do not anticipate to see 3rd or 4th units to be implemented immediately. It will take a long time, and many lots, as I mentioned previously, would not be able to accommodate up to 4 units, just based on the lot size and the servicing.
A quick follow-up, Mr. Mayor? Please. Okay. Yeah, just the one last specific question. Do you know for how many years have the 3 units been allowed?
Through mayor to councillor, I don't have that specific timeline. If Brandon can speak to this.
Yes, through the mayor. So that specific regulation was a provincial one. It was through Bill 23, which was enacted in close to the end of 2022. So we're in 2025 now, so a couple of years.
Okay, thank you.
Not yet. Councillor Bell, you're first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at table 1 in the report, and a lot of the conversation so far has been about 4 units, and yet we've put dots all over this table, lots of new dots. So R1 and R2 have really transformed from what we previously knew to something, or will transform to something quite different. This sounds like we're slipping in all kinds of things under the guise of 4 units. I can't imagine street fronting row houses suddenly popping up on existing lots in the south end or the north end of Paris. So I think we're kind of disguising a bigger change here, and perhaps staff could comment on that.
Through the mayor to Councillor Bell, not trying to disguise anything. We're saying 4 units, so up to 4 units and various types of housing formats could take place. That was something that came out and was shown in our original information meeting a few weeks ago, that kind of there's different types of housing that can achieve 4. The more likely is either someone's taking an existing house and doing an addition or converting it to some extent, or someone is adding these ARUs, like adding an ARU in the house and 2 in the backyard. So that's the more likely, just because of the costs and implications versus someone buying a property, tearing it down and trying to rebuild something. Those are less likely, but we're not saying those aren't possible if somebody was looking to redevelop and had a site that made it work. So we're giving full flexibility to a 4 units potential.
Yeah, because none of your examples in here, in this report, describe what you just said, the potential for tearing something down and putting up 4 row houses in an existing lot. I think we're not communicating this as well as I think we need to. I think we're trying to slide things under the table. I think the idea of 4 ARU or 3 ARUs and an existing dwelling, that's a reasonably understood concept. But when you start to look at what else you've got on table 1, stacked townhouses, street fronting row houses, I think that will change the nature of our town completely, but I'll save that for the commentary. Next question, are we abandoning the lot coverage limit?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bell, no, we were, as Nagin mentioned, there was no substantial changes to the lot coverages. That's part of the change management element. She noted that we're trying to maintain setbacks, so they're existing today. The lot coverages basically as they exist today. Those elements we're trying to maintain with the main unit so that the change is managed in a way that it is not going to substantially alter the community and drastically from what they could do today in terms of lot coverages, et cetera.
Then I'm struggling again. If I look at figures 1 and 2 here, it looks like you're doubling the lot coverage. And if one of those existing dwellings was already at the limit, are you saying you can put another unit there or multiple units equally large in terms of lot coverage?
Through the mayor, Councillor Bell, no, they can't exceed the lot coverage without coming back for a planning approval, different planning approval. So they're still bound by the lot coverages in the zone. The maximum lot coverage for all buildings is still there. That's not changing, other than we did tweak the element around the accessory building, that as Nagin noted, because there was some differing elements in the zoning that made it confusing, but we're cleaned that portion up, but we're not overall changing the maximum lot coverage.
Then I think our drawings need to reflect that, because I think it gives you a completely false impression that you can actually cover any lot with about as much building as you feel like you want to. And I think related to that, and I think it's on the slide with the parking, slides, figures 5 and 6. You show parking next to a principal building, and then you attach 1 or 2 or 3 ARUs. I don't see any more parking. And again, just in terms of lot coverage, the minute you say you need another 2 or 3 parking spaces on that lot, I can't imagine there's a single scrap of grass left to show. I really think we are painting this in a very interesting but confusing way. And I come away with this thinking I can put as much building on this as I want, I can put as much car parking on as I want, and then you're telling me there's no change to the lot limit, the lot coverage limit. So I'm really struggling with this, Jeremy, I have to say.
Council have any other comments? Councillor Pierce, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's comments is okay?
Yeah. So the public's going to have a chance to speak too, but
Okay.
we're
Yep.
still speaking first.
No, I think this report started off with the statement to increase the opportunities for diverse and innovative housing options. I love that statement. That's exactly what we need. But I don't believe this is the way to do it. I think we're opening up a bit of a Pandora's box here. I can kind of echo what Councillor Bella said here. My biggest concern is, once again, parking. We've got a huge issue with parking all over the county, especially in the newer areas and such like that. So all of a sudden, we know for a fact that it's not one car per unit. That's not the way it works. There's 2 cars, there's 3 cars. And it's going to get to the point where, again, there's no room on these sites to put the vehicles because of the coverage of these ARUs or additional dwellings or whatever you want to call them. So they're going to be out on the street. And that's going to cause more problems with street parking. It's going to exacerbate a problem that we've already have. And again, the initial statement in this report to increase the opportunities for diverse and innovative housing options, 100% we need to do that. And I believe this is not the way to do it. I think this is opening up something that we don't really want to do, carte blanche. If we want to do it on a case-to-case basis, that's a different story altogether. But I think just opening it up like this is going to cause issues. And I appreciate what the delegation said earlier. If you look at where these are going to be able to be put, as it was stated, in the new areas, in the new subdivisions and stuff like that, there isn't the lot space there to do it. So where is it going to go? It's going to go into the older parts of Paris and the older parts of St. George. And I appreciate the statements that were made there and the fact that now all of a sudden it could be something totally different and it could be, it could change neighborhoods drastically. I don't believe this is the way we want to go. I'm not in favor of this. I think there's other ways to do it, and I don't believe this is it.
Thanks, Councillor Pierce. Councillor Miller?
I guess if we're in the comments phase, then I guess.
Yep.
I'll say right up front, I don't support this 4 units as a right. However, we are short of housing options for a lot of people. Affordable housing is tough to get. This is why it's in front of us. I'm not in favor of all the population coming. I think it's too much too soon. The problem is we don't have a say over it. We have to deal with it as best we can. And this is one of the ways to deal with it. And other municipalities are doing the exact same thing. They are trying to get in front of this affordable housing, different housing options. One of the ways they're doing it is this. Sometimes you don't like where you're going, where the province is taking you, but sometimes you got to go there. And this unfortunately has a financial gun attached to it. And being the pragmatic person I am, I will support it. It helps solve, like I say, a bit of the different housing types and lack of them in our community. And 2, the financial incentives, the penalties are just, they'd be too great for a county our size.
Okay, so I've made a bit of a goof here. We were in discussions here, and I didn't take it back to the people in the room here to speak because it is an open meeting. Karen, if you want to come back up because you were registered, you can speak again first, and then I'm going to open it up to the room for discussion before the council continues what we were going to do.
Thank you. I want to address the one thing that Steve had talked about, and it was about that we've had these multi-units, that we've been able to do that for a number of years. We have not had the focus and the intent from outside before as we have now. You go downtown and see how many real estate offices are down there trying to sell us. You go to Brampton, and this is without a word of a lie. One of my nieces was driving. She said, I counted 15 billboards that said, move to Paris. It's a beautiful little town. And I know we can't control that, but we're going to be getting a lot more people that are looking at, oh, well, we can go there and we can get that house, and then we can buy it and then make it into a 4-plex, And there we go. Now we're going to start making some money, so let's do, and that's how things roll. And that is one of the concerns is in a residential area, in the residential areas that we have, to try and keep that flavor of Paris, that old time. During the weekends, you go up there and you see people just driving around to look at the beautiful old homes on the lots. And that's part of what the beautiful town of Paris is. Thank you.
Now, because this is an open meeting, is there anyone in the room that would like to come and speak to or against this proposal? I'll ask for a second time. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to come and speak to or against this proposal? If you'd like to come up and give your name, please, and your address for the clerk.
Hi, Jennifer Walls. I live at 14 Curtis Avenue, Paris. Did I say that right? 14 Curtis Avenue South in Paris. I just want to remind everybody that we had lots of people tonight talking about their farmland and they didn't like how things were changing. And we have lots of development happening. I know specifically on my road, and I know councillors will know what I'm talking about, that if we have people who are upset about new development coming in and stuff, when older homes sell their home because they're upset about, when we first moved to Paris, I made my husband drive for a year from Burlington to Cambridge before I moved with a 1-year-old baby. And I moved there because when I got on that lot, I thought, this is $1 million property. I have deer in my backyard. I have all of these great things that I get to see. But I got to see those things in Burlington because we backed onto the Royal Botanical Gardens. And on the other side of us was a lake. And we were protected and still got to see all these things. When we change what's happening in our area, we're changing minds of people who've moved here for specific reasons. And then when people decide, we don't want to live here anymore, this is not what we just got into, when our communities are being changed, you have to know that whoever is coming into my property, who backs onto the Grand River and has lots of acreage, could easily tear down my property and put lots of things on there that I would never imagine to put on there. And you just have to think about what that's going to change for your community. For my neighbors, for people who think this is a nice town to be in. I like these nice houses that they're very old. I like the animals that are here. You have to think about how all of this is going to change our community. I just want you to think about that.
Are there any questions for the delegation before she sits down? Okay, so I think I asked for the second time, so we'll start again. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak to or against this proposal? I'll ask the second time, is there anyone in the room that would like to speak to or against this proposal? And I'll ask for the third and last time, is there anyone in the room that would like to speak to or against this proposal? Seeing none, I'll call this part of the meeting closed, and I'll go back to council. Councillor Oakley, you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to be speaking in favor of this recommendation here. Something we've talked about extensively throughout this term, through our official plan, through various strategic plans, in our various delegations to the government. We are all recognizing that we're in a housing crisis and housing needs to be built. Importantly as well, one of the reasons why I chose to run as councillor is the expanding urban sprawl that we see, in the town that I grew up in, and the fact that housing is unaffordable for my generation. I'll speak as someone who is 10 to 40 years younger than everyone else around the table here. We desperately need these expanded housing options. We need them to be in areas that are already developed, or else we will continue to have urban sprawl. We'll pave over farmland, pave over natural areas, if we're going to get the housing that we need, and we don't consider infill development. And it's baked into our official plan throughout it. So in my opinion, it's the financially responsible thing, the socially responsible thing, and the environmentally responsible thing to support this recommendation tonight. And frankly, if we don't, I think that indicates that we need to look into an official plan amendment to remove the drive for gentle infill development, which is in our official plan, so that we don't mislead both the public, developers, and waste our own time staff pursuing these types of initiatives when very clearly, if we don't approve this, we frankly are not interested in doing it. So those would be my couple of cents here.
Anyone else have any? Oh, Councillor Howes, you have your hand up, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Yeah, this is such an interesting debate, and I see all perspectives of it. I respect what Councillor Bell and Councillor Pierce are saying. Nobody wants to see the older established neighborhoods in Paris or St. George or anywhere else, having beautiful old houses knocked down, and I respect what Karen is concerned about, and I appreciate that she communicated and came in to speak. But at the same time, and I'm going to go one step further than what Councillor Oakley was mentioning. Like, indeed, we want younger people to have some housing options that they might be able to afford. And that sometimes means smaller, more modest housing options, which we just don't have in our municipalities now. We have a shortage of rentals, but not just for the younger age group, but for the older age group too. There are lots of seniors who want to downsize, and they're not necessarily prepared to go to a retirement home, and there are no options for them either. So having weighed it all, I plan to support this motion, and I will just point out that the very first page, the very first whereas of Nagin's report is that council directed staff to proceed in this direction in the first place. So I think we have to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commentary this time. It's quite clear that the focus of this proposal is really the older parts of Paris and St. George, because if you go down to the south end of town, it's very clear that the properties there simply could not accommodate these 4 units by right. We already have 3 units by right, and the uptake is limited. I think we do not need to go any further. It's an unnecessary step, except for the fact that somehow it will give us some financial advantage. And I'm not sure I want to go against my principles on this one, just for financial advantage. I think we are going to potentially change the nature of the town if we permit this. It may not happen in 5 or 10 years, but once it's there, it will make a change. And I will not vote in support of this.
Anyone else? Hi, Councillor Kyle?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through you. I find myself aligning with the comments of both Councillor Oakley and Councillor Howes, as well as Councillor Miller's comments too. And while there's not a perfect solution, especially in terms of parking, which seems to be one of the biggest issues, I think it's one of those things where we need to think about, to Councillor Oakley's point, the younger residents, the seniors that Councillor Howes pointed out, that are looking for a mix of housing that we don't have available. I think it is important to keep in mind that there is funding that could be associated with that, and I think it's also important to keep in mind that it's up to 4 units as of right. So to staff's comments earlier, they've seen minimal uptake on 3 at this point. So the chances that we're going to have a whole neighborhood of 4plexes, it's not likely going to happen. But I think that having the flexibility there for a property that can handle that with all of the restrictions that staff have pointed out, this is not something that's going to fit every property in Paris or every property in St. George, regardless of whether they're established or in new subdivisions. So I think we need to be mindful in thinking forward that we have a crisis now of housing, but if we don't do something and start to expand the variety of housing that we have available, it's just going to continue to compound. And you know, I have teenage kids now, and I'd like to think that down the road, which isn't all that long from now, there might be something that they could get when they want to go on their own if we don't have something on the farm for them. Or we have the opportunity that we could put one up for my father-in-law and each one of my kids. So I think we need to think about future, we need to be forward and future thinking for this, because this is more of the gentle density that should theoretically actually keep our small town, that small town feeling, rather than continuing to expand out and put in more big apartment buildings, which we saw how well that's gone over, and townhouses and that type of thing. If we can find some of these smaller solutions, I think that will actually help to keep the feel of the town.
Anyone else? I can't support this staff recommendation. I do appreciate all the work that went into it, but I also am reminded of all the houses that back onto, or that front onto Grand River Street. And I remember a discussion with staff about where their front door was and where their back door was. And they all think that the front of their house, the front door is their front door. And staff told them that the front door is the one that they use, which is the one on Baird Street behind it. So I don't remember what we were talking about, whether it was sheds or it was something that couldn't be so many feet from your front door. Excuse me. And the houses at back, all the houses that go up by the high school on the left hand, well, on both sides, the front doors were designed to be the front doors. They faced the main road, which would have been the main road then before the overpass and the highway. But when they went to get something done, and I'll have to go back and find out what I'm talking about, because there was an issue where it had to be so many feet from their back door or their front door, and they were told that their front door wasn't their front door, it was their back door. And because they parked their cars in the back, there was stipulations as to where the front of their house was and where the back of their house was. And there was a lot of people that couldn't do what they wanted to do because staff said, the door that you use by your driveway where your car is to be considered the front door. And when there's no access to your front door, which is the grandness of the build of the house, which faced the main street, it wasn't considered their front door anymore. And again, I wished I had the details to what I'm thinking about, but it wasn't that long ago. And I think Brandon might be able to help me out after this meeting. I can't support that, because if staff decides that the front door of your house is the door that you use when you carry your groceries in where your car's parked, then I'm afraid that if they say you can put them in your backyard, the backyard becomes between the house and Grand River Street, and that's a nightmare. That's an absolute nightmare. So I know that staff has a lot of common sense, and there's a lot of discretion, but if policy becomes so rigid, and people take us to task on what we've said about this policy, and they can start building these things between the main house on Grand River Street and the road, because there's no walkway, there's no driveway, there's no access. It has wrought iron fencing around it, and you can't get to it. If that becomes their backyard, by definition of the county of Brant, we're euchred. And I think that would be horrible to have that happen on a technicality. It's the same thing in St. George on Burt Road, the Burt House. The Burt House has a front door that's the back door. A lot of these big stately houses, the Loveless House, which is now sold for development, but all of these houses have been built so that the front yard was the lawn. You entertained on the lawn, and you parked in the back. And if our language is not clear, and this starts to become something that is more suited to their backyard, and we consider the backyard the front yard, I see nightmares. I can't support it until we clarify our terms of reference as to where these can be built and where they can't be built, because that would be horrifying to see them built somewhere that we're not talking about tonight, that just happens because that's what we've decided to call the front and the back of the house. Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And just to reiterate what Councillor Bell was saying there, and it's been noted a few times tonight, that we already have right now 3 units as a right. I think this is, if you want to call it overkill, I don't think it's necessary. We can have the same type of thing with what we have in place right now. Yes, there wouldn't be the financial from the province and that sort of thing, and I agree with my ward mate here. We need to, sure, would it be nice to bring in some money? Sure it would, but I think we need to weigh the pros and cons of it, and I think what we have right now, it's been in for a few years, we leave it as is. I don't think this is necessary, and just to circle back a little bit more when Councillor Oakley was talking about infill, if you, the definition of the infill, it refers to building on previously vacant or underutilized land within an established urban area. And that it's a way to increase density and accommodate growth without expanding. I agree with all that. But it also states that it can involve building on vacant lots or demolishing older buildings and replacing them with new ones, which our delegation said earlier, or adding new units to existing structures. What we're talking about here, and even with the 3 units, it's multiple structures on the same property. And I think that's where, that's one of the issues I have when it comes to coverage and that sort of thing, and parking. Again, I can't support this. I think what we have now is working. People aren't using it. Let's just leave it be.
We're going to go to Alicia and then come back to Councillor Kyle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council, just to answer a few questions that I've heard coming up. First of all, in response to the Mayor's comments about what is allowed, so within the regulations, and kind of just to clarify, the funding that we're talking about is the $40 or $30 million grant for the Paris wastewater treatment plant, which is built into the most recent rate strategy, which we saw. Currently, as of right now, we don't have any other grant opportunities for that, although, I mean, Rob would obviously bring things forward and finance would bring things forward if something further came up. So with respect to that, the qualifications are that it would have to be within fully serviced areas. So that's why this is limited to Paris and St. George. That's the only area within the county that would qualify. And within that, it would be the entirety of the area. So there would be no ability for us to kind of subdivide and to kind of narrow it down from that. With respect to a previous question of how many 3 units as of right do we have, the answer is 0. We don't have any yet that have come forward. And just to kind of reiterate and confirm what Jeremy said, parking restrictions remain in place regardless of the diagrams. I believe Negin was just trying to demonstrate certain things within each of the diagrams, so not necessarily all aspects. So in some of her diagrams, she was looking at setbacks, and that's what she was trying to illustrate, not necessarily parking in that diagram. Parking restrictions are still in place and would not be changed unless council were to direct staff to do that in the future. Same thing with total lot coverage. Setbacks are minorly tweaked as we talked about. But I think anything, and perhaps if this initiative was approved, we could potentially look at a period, and if there are things which council sees developing, we could amend, we could tweak the bylaw in the future based on that monitoring, should potentially a trend which council isn't comfortable with emerge, and staff could undertake to report back to council on uptakes on this, should there be any.
Thank you. Councillor Kyle?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Alicia actually kind of answered the question I was going to ask, and that was for clarity on what funding it was tied to it. So I would just reiterate that I do think it would be a wise financial and fiscally responsible thing to do to approve this, given that I don't think there will be a huge amount of uptake, but I think it's super important, given the cost that we know is coming for the Paris wastewater treatment facility, that we do have every opportunity to apply for as much funding as we possibly can to take that burden off the tax levy.
Good. Councillor Miller?
I'm just going to share the town of Collingwood's experience. They did have a citizen-led task force on affordable housing, and one of their recommendations was 4 units as a right, and they supported that wholeheartedly. So it's interesting that we're having a different discussion this evening on it, but it's the same concept. At the same time, governments, I'm not sure, always lead. Sometimes we're trying to play catch-up, and if the people are coming and they can't afford the housing, they're going to cram people in here, in there, everywhere. So I'd rather, like I said, I'm not happy about it, but I'd rather get in front of it and at least have some rules and regulations around it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should do the wrong thing because it's tied to a funding opportunity. I think we just need to tweak it so that we don't end up with these things looking like bunkers or bunkhouses on Grand River Street going up the hill because we didn't have our qualifications or our terms of reference right. So maybe we should just tweak it and then okay it. But I don't think we should have it so that can happen. I'm worried about things slipping through this. Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just one final comment I wanted to make in regards to some of the discussion on whether or not we're essentially selling out our principles for funding here. In my opinion here, the funding is a sort of a cherry on top here. I would actually be thrilled if we did have significant uptake because, as I've said before, we are in desperate need of more housing options to get us out of the housing crisis that we all know and all see that we're in.
Councillor Pierce.
Just a question here, and we're going to be voting on this, obviously, but the report, it says, it's got the report name in there, and it says purpose for approval. Yet one of the therefore that says that we receive it as information.
I understand that it's for, I would certainly support receiving it for information.
Well, they're both in there, so I'm just trying to understand.
Mr. Clerk, are we receiving it as information or for approval?
Through your worship.
Mayor to, sorry, go ahead.
It is for approval tonight.
So if I could then, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation, it's got the whereases and then it says therefore that report RPT 0157-25, which is this report, be received as information.
Clarification, Mr. Clerk.
Through your worship to Councillor Pierce, for the report to be received as information, that clause is just, it's a standard clause within many of the recommendations. It's still for approval, it's just, it's the action afterwards of the motion to receive as information. Further down, it does note, and that zoning bylaw amendment file ZBA 225NM initiated by the County of Brant to enable 4 units as of right in all low-density, fully serviced areas of Paris and St. George be approved, and then noting the following reasons for approval.
Any more clear, Councillor Pierce?
It's all good.
It's all good? Any other comments before we call the vote? Oh. Everything's good? Okay, if you want to call the vote then, Mr. Clerk.
Through your worship, we still need a mover and seconder, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's get it on the floor. Councillor Oakley, and I need a seconder. Councillor Kyle, it's on the floor.
All those in favor of the staff recommendation, if you can please raise your hand if you are in support. Perfect, thank you. And those against, please.
Did you get it? Against, just one more time.
Sorry, yeah, those in opposition of this motion, please raise your hand. Perfect, thank you. Sorry, it's just loading. The motion passes 6-4.
Thank you. Takes us to number 12 on the agenda, which is staff reports. We don't have any. Communications, we don't have any. Resolutions, I understand Councillor Oakley is declaring a conflict. Councillor Kyle?
Sorry, point of order, Mr. Mayor, but we skipped over 11.
We skipped over 11. Oh, I'm sorry, the report, I don't have, there we go, I'm sorry. Takes us to number 11.1, which is the Agriculture Advisory Committee report, and that's you, Councillor Kyle, I'm sorry.
That's the only reason why I remember. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman that the Agricultural Advisory Committee minutes of April 28th, 2025 be received as information.
Thank you. Are there any questions to Councillor Kyle on the Agricultural Advisory Committee minutes? See none. All those in favor? Thank you. Now I can turn the page. No, I can't. Spencer, we're going to have to invest in a stapler. Okay, now we're on number 14. Is that right?
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor, I will step out on this. I don't necessarily agree that it is a conflict of interest, but just to clean things up and make things simpler for everybody, I will step away and see what happens with it.
Okay, Councillor Chambers.
Now that Councillor Oakley has declared a conflict on the matter, I have a resolution for consideration of council, if I can read it.
Okay.
That, due to the time-sensitive nature of the matter, the following resolution be presented to council for consideration without notice pursuant to Section 20 of the procedural bylaw. The resolution being, whereas the Federation of Canadian Municipalities represents the interests of member municipalities on policy and program matters that fall within federal jurisdiction, you can read along with me, whereas FCM's Board of Directors is comprised of elected municipal officials from all regions and sizes of communities to form a broad base of support and provide FCM with the united voice required to carry the municipal message to the federal government, and whereas FCM's annual general meeting will be held in conjunction with the annual conference and trade show, May 29th to June 1st, 2025, followed by the election of FCM's Board of Directors, be it resolved that Council of the County of Brant endorse Councillor Lucas Oakley to stand for election on the FCM's Board of Directors for the period starting June 2025 and ending June 2027, and be it further resolved that costs associated with Councillor Lucas Oakley attending the FCM's Board of Directors meetings be consistent with bylaw 8622 in brackets, the remuneration bylaw.
Seeking a seconder. Councillor Bell? Any discussion? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? And there you go. As clean as it could be. Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Thank you, Councillor Oakley. Takes us to number 15 on the agenda, which is other business. I didn't ask if there was any other business for the betterment of the county. Is there anything that someone wants to put on for other business? Seeing none, we'll go in camera. Councillor Chambers, you're going to take us in camera, seconded by Councillor Miller. All those in favor? And we're heading in camera. So we'll just give it a minute for people that need to leave. Okay, we're back in open session, and we have to ratify. Councillor Pierce?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McAlpine. The council approved the lease and addition of office space at Wincy Mills beginning in June at the cost of $5,000 a month, and the council directs staff to pursue and purchase a portable and all necessary additional work for the setup to make it operational at the Burford Customer Service Office, CSO. And the council directs staff to fund the portable purchase and all necessary additional requirements for the setup to make it operational of $90,000 to the from the Operations Capital Reserve.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Which takes us to number 17, which is the bylaws, and Councillor Bell has those.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Howes, that bylaws 4725 and 4825 be read a first time.
All those in favor of the first reading of the bylaws? Okay.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Howes, that bylaws 4725 and 4825 be read a second time and all preambles and clauses be adopted.
Are there any questions for the second reading of the bylaws? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And Councillor Bell?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Howes, that bylaws 2225, 2425, 4725 and 4825 be read a third time, passed, signed and executed.
All those in favor of the third reading of the bylaws? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Takes us to number 18 on the agenda, which is our next meeting. Is there anything else that anyone wants to say before we call it a night? If not, looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Pierce.